Good Thursday morning, everyone. Doug Farrar, editor of Touchdown Wire on the USA Today Sports Media Group Network here, along with our five-tool guy, Mark Schofield. Mark, we got a few things to talk about. Now, there is a bye between the preseason and the regular season. This has me all screwed up because I'm like, okay, there's college football, but where did the NFL go? Everyone's taking the weekend off and Labor Day, and then we got to jump back into it, and what the heck?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky to reframe the mind when we have this sort of bye week. Thankfully, college football gives us something tonight. But yeah, we get a weekend to sort of catch our breath before the long, strange marathon to the draft begins.
With that in mind, instead of looking forward, which we'll do next week when we get the preview podcast rolling again and all kinds of interesting matchups to go on to go with there, I wanted to go back and look at the preseason. And as you put in your article, the all-preseason Touchdown Wire's all-preseason team, there's making a roster, there's going to the Pro Bowl, there's going to the Super Bowl. But when you make the Touchdown Wire all-preseason team, I feel like that's the real feather in your cap.
I mean, I've already seen on Instagram, agents promoting their clients who were named to the Touchdown Wire all-preseason team. And of course, I'm actually not being honest when I say that, because nobody's doing that, but it is I think a tremendous honor to be named to this illustrious team, because there are people that were veterans that once started jobs that were on this. There are people that just made rosters that were on this. There were rookies that maybe lived up to some hype or played above their pre-draft expectations. So it was fun to put together. It was a fun little preseason, and it was good to be able to see some of the all 22. Thank you, NFL.
I have no comment. Well, now they're saying that Game Pass will be available at some point in the regular season. We apologize for the inconvenience. And when player search comes back, I'll never know. I would rather honestly, just a side rant. I'd rather have player search and broadcast than no player search in all 22. From a perspective of looking at guys and okay, Matthew Stafford, all his snaps. Now, well, I'm not going to go into it. Couple of football dorks whining about all 22.
Yeah,
that makes for a really compelling podcast.
It does make for great audio.
Oh boy. Okay, so we're gonna do your all preseason team, and we had a couple of crossovers. I'm gonna do mine. Yours is up on Touchdown Wire. I may or may not put mine up on Touchdown Wire. We'll see how that rolls. I'm working on a couple of things, including one potentially fatal flaw for every NFL team with the Texans. I can just put everything next.
Everything is a flaw.
Some teams make it easier to write about than others. So your Touchdown Wire all preseason team, you start out at quarterback with a rather familiar face. And you did a piece, How the Job Was Won, starring Jameis Winston. I mean, I'll just say a couple things. If Jameis can cut his error rate to say 60% of the 30 for 30 year, they got something done there. And are there 5 coaches who are better at designing open routes and open concepts for receivers than Sean Payton? Hint, no.
Probably not. No.
Hint, no. He will come back, curl, skinny post, slant, combo. He'll just, So talk to me about Winston.
Well, I was just very impressed, particularly with his game against Jacksonville, when he showed command of the offense, command of the decision-making process from the pocket, showed the ability to sort of adjust things pre-snap. The second touchdown to Callaway, it was a zero blitz look, and he gave him a signal that, run the go. I'm going to hit you on that.
And that was a heater. By the way, Marquez Callaway also off the hook. He was falling down and pleading for for pass interference at the same time he caught it with one hand.
Yeah. I mean, two very impressive players this preseason. I just, like you said, if Jameis could just cut down on the mistakes, and I know that's such an easy thing for us to say, right? Oh, if he could just stop making mistakes, he's going to be great. But that's the thing. I mean, we've read in recent days how anonymous NFL executives are saying that Jameis could be like a fantastic player this year because he has the arm, he has the talent, he has all that. This is all that we've known about Jameis for years now, dating back to Florida State. It's always been, can he cut down the mistakes? I remember that was my bugaboo on him when he was coming out of Florida State. Throw it into triple coverage, targeted nickel, Larry, triple coverage, things like that. Like with Sean Payton, maybe there's finally a chance for him to do that.
We have to remember that he's been in the Sean Payton incubator for a season already.
Yeah,
so this isn't new, and he's got a year away from crazy verts. And my comp when he came out of Florida State was Jay Cutler. Are these the same? I never know what like I wish they would do like anonymous scout A and anonymous scout B, so we don't have to know their names. At least they can like tabulate their opinions, just sort of get
Right.
We were talking to Gil Brandt years ago, and he said, "We were the Cowboys. We didn't just grade the players; we graded the scouts, so we knew what their biases were." So if a guy says Jameis Winston is going to be the next whoever, it's like, are you the same guy who said that Daniel Jones is going to be an All-Pro by year 3? Because I don't know. Anyway, I digress. Running back. Easy call.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Rhamondre Stevenson, i.e. Derrick Henry Jr. Wow.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. And I really think that they are carving out a bigger role for him than just say, you know, he's going to be the guy that gets the Foxboro flu and they're going to medically redshirt him this year. And some of the stuff that Bill Belichick has done. No, they're going to use him. They're going to use him a lot. They've traded Sony Michel. There isn't somebody in their running back room right now that has the combination of both power and footwork that he has. Now,
I think, by the way, let's do the power thing. Can we disabuse ourselves of the notion that he's LeGarrette Blount? Because he's not. He's faster. He's an every down guy. He can catch the ball. Yeah. I'm not saying he's Derrick Henry, but he has, you know, the occasional Derrick Henry 99-yard run where he's like beating safeties downfield. I would say that Rhamondre Stevenson, in an underdeveloped, you know, to an NFL degree sense, has a lot of those same attributes.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, at first blush, I understand why people went the LeGarrette Blount route, but he's so much more than that. And he has the footwork of a much more nimble and smaller scat back type player. Like, and I think that's why they're going to rely on him more than people might expect. And when you see in that third preseason game, they're going empty, they're flexing him out wide, they're throwing hitches to him on Haas. Like, that's a sign that there's going to be a bigger role for him this season in this offense than people might expect sitting here right now. But he was incredible. He was absolutely incredible this preseason. And, you know, Belichick, I know we're probably going to touch on Cam and Mack at some point. Belichick has definitely said, look, we are turning the page on this offense and we are going with these guys, these young kids going forward.
Yeah, I was going to start with Cam versus Mac. Let's do that at the end. I got to tell you about that. So the aforementioned Marquez Callaway, it's not like Michael Thomas who or whom, but you know, Thomas he's a decent deep receiver. So even when it's not like Callaway replicates or replaces Thomas's skill set, it's two different things. And then you get the deep post guy and the seam route guy and the 40 yards downfield guy, and you have Thomas. And that, you know, beyond the Sean Payton route concepts, that makes it even easier for Jameis because this kid is
no, he's also very impressive this preseason. Seemed to get open on everything, seemed to get open at the line of scrimmage, seemed to get open deep in the down if he needed to, adjustments, ball skills, competitive toughness at the catch point. Like, he checked this preseason so many boxes you want to see a wide receiver check. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this was an easy call. There were some other receivers that stood out. I mean, Jacoby Myers stood out to me. There were some others as well. You know, I think Devonta Smith, even though he didn't play a ton, he looked great against New England. He was open all the time. So there are a number of receivers that were impressive, but Callaway just really stood out to me.
I have two receivers on mine. I have to hold my water for Devonta Smith, who I think will be incredible when Joe Flacco is not throwing empty beer cans in his direction, because that was
right.
Zoiks, tight end Jesper Horsted, and we'll get more into Jesper when I go on my Justin Fields rant, which is coming pretty soon. But this guy, 3 touchdowns?
3 touchdowns. I mean, just always seemed to get open. Did a pretty good job blocking too when he was tasked with blocking. And for all the like oohs and ahs over that Fields touchdown against the Tennessee Titans, where he like rolled to his right and all that stuff, it was Jesper Horsted who made the catch, and it was a tough catch in traffic to toe tap on the sideline to finish the play. He's somebody that went into this training camp as like a bubble guy on the roster, but they made it hard to cut him, so they couldn't. And so while the other guys we talked about like might win started jobs or one started jobs, this is a guy that won a roster spot what he wasn't expected to based on what he did in this preseason. I thought that was really impressive.
Is it good to be able to get open in most offenses? Is it important to get open in a Matt Nagy offense? We don't know.
It's critically important to get open in a Matt Nagy offense because because that offense is what it is.
Scheme ain't going to do it. The sack of Fields, I put up a screen cap of what Fields saw. First of all, you have Jermaine Ifedi as your right tackle, which again, we'll get into that later. what he saw when he hit his back foot. He had like 4 guys and they were all covered because it was just ISO. I'm like, okay.
Yep.
I didn't know you were Mike McCarthy, but I guess you are. Your offensive tackle, Josh Niezmann of the Green Bay Packers. Tell me about him.
Yeah.
I did not. I have a Packers offensive lineman on my list, but I did not really focus on Josh.
Yeah, somebody that stood out to me both in the run game and in pass protection. Aggressive, quick feet with his pass sets. Seemed willing to do the work in the run game. You know, I had a clip of him running duo, immediate combo, up to the second level, looking for work, all that stuff that you want to see from an offensive lineman. And similar to Horsted, like somebody that just won a spot. Like he's not going to start. Obviously, they have a left tackle that's better than him. But somebody that did enough to win a roster position in the preseason, gave up, I think, just 1 sack, played a ton of snaps, like I think 147 snaps this preseason, which is a lot, 3 preseason games, but he played in all of them. I was very impressed with his footwork, very impressed with his hand placement. And so, you know, there were a couple of different offensive linemen you could have picked, even some of the rookies. Lucas Nan as well, I thought did pretty well on the Chiefs' right side, but I liked what this kid did.
Well, the guy you're talking about, David Bakhtiari, is going to miss the first 6 weeks of the regular season. He's on PUP. And so they may move Elgton Jenkins over to left tackle.
That's what they're probably going to do.
I think Jenkins is better inside. My point is, for the Packers offensive lineman you just mentioned, Josh, and the guy I'm going to mention, opportunities abound.
Yeah.
And it sucks for the Packers that they're not going to have Bakhtiari, but, you know, better in the postseason than the first 6 weeks.
Right.
Because they found that out last year. Yikes. Especially against the Buccaneers. Yikes. Interior offensive line, Kevin Dotson of the Steelers you have. And I find this because Steelers really reshaped their offensive line. And I'm not saying these kids who have replaced, you know, Pouncey, DeCastro and Villanueva are going to be amazing against, you know, NFL defenses in the regular season. But I was really surprised week to week how well these guys held up.
Yeah. And this is somebody that prior to like preseason and training camp, there were rumors that he was out of shape, that he wasn't working out and all this stuff. And Mike Tomlin was out there saying that he hasn't earned reps with the first team yet. And so the expectations were low, but he was one of the best interior offensive linemen like around the league this entire preseason. Played extremely well, was dominant in the run game, which you want to see, held up well in pass protection, played in all 3 games, really locked down that left guard spot. And like you said, they're rebuilding their offensive line, particularly in the interior. You know, the guy they had last year, he went down, you know, late in the season. Now he's with the Chargers. So they needed this guy to step up and lock down that left guard spot. He did it. It was impressive. And I just love when somebody like sort of turns the page on the rumors that were about them, right? Because he was out of shape. Look, he was looking skinny. Like it was like he skipped leg day. Like I saw all the tweets, the DMs. He won a roster spot and want to start a job. Hats off to him.
I was watching Orlando Brown tape this week. There's a guy who really beat the narrative.
Yeah.
Like worst combine period ever. And then, you know, now he's with the best offense in the NFL. I remember we were saying, I think a month ago on the pod, like Ben's going to have 700 3-step drops. Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
We'll see. Your edge defender is a guy I'm familiar with up in Washington State, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What did you see from Joe?
Speed to power, the ability to sort of get after the quarterback off the snap to win early in the down, but then the effort rate to win late in the down. I mean, this was such a strange, and I mentioned this when I wrote it up. This was just a weird edge class, right? Because even the guys at the top, whether it was, you know, Jalen Phillips, whether it was Gregory Rousseau, like there were question marks on all of these guys. And the one question mark sort of on JTS was he opted out. Like, how much are we trusting him? I always thought he'd be better in like an off ball role than somebody that was just going to line up, pin his ears back, and get after the quarterback. And then when the Buccaneers drafted him at the end of the first round, it was probably the, you know, prototypical luxury pick, right? Yep. You didn't have a ton of needs. Why not take a flyer on this guy? He's lived up to the first round build in my mind. Just a very solid, you know, preseason slate of games. The speed off the edge really flashed. And I know at times, like he beat Dylan Raditz on one play, and like Dylan's probably going to take some time to like adjust to life in
Dylan
the NFL. FCS.
Dylan, I watched him because I liked his North Dakota State tape. He did not have a great preseason.
No, he didn't.
And you know that's going to happen. But Yeah.
But the way he beat him so quick after the snap, like that's going to work against many offensive tackles that aren't Dylan Raditz. So JTS tremendous preseason, just gives that defense just one more weapon in their arsenal of how they can get after opposing quarterbacks.
Spoiler alert, there are two guys on your list that are also on my list. It's the first one, Malik McDowell, Cleveland Browns. I know Malik well because he was drafted by the Seahawks in the second round of the 2017 draft. ATV accident, multiple arrests, 11 months in jail. We're thinking, okay, terrible story, because at Michigan State, he was a top 10 talent. And the only reason he dropped the second round was off-field stuff, which was already happening. And you hope the guy can keep it together. He made the final 53 for the Browns, who don't really have a dominant you have to get the microscope out, the like Hubble, to find holes in the Browns roster. Interior defensive disruption is not like an A+ thing. But after seeing what McDowell did, especially, he had a sack against the Giants, had a sack against the Falcons. What he did to Atlanta's interior offensive line, including Dahlman, the kid from Stanford, who I think they took in the 4th round, that was embarrassing. That was just like, whoa. That was an NFL guy against high school players. It was that bad for Atlanta.
Yeah. No, and like you said, like interior defensive pressure and push isn't critical. But when you look at what Cleveland has around the rest of their defense, if he could sort of lock down the inside, that could be a top 5 defense. It really could, in my mind. I love what they have put together this year. And if they have the ability to sort of rely on him in the interior to sort of win on the inside, that will be massive for the Cleveland Browns and their chances to sort of not just get back to the playoffs, not just sort of get past the divisional round, but I think potentially win the AFC.
Oh, Mark, I have a Tom Brady on line 1. He's disagreeing with your assessment that interior defensive disruption is not critical.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair, Tom.
See you later. Okay. Linebacker Micah Parsons, Dallas Cowboys, taken, I believe, 11th overall. So you were thinking he's going to be, whoa.
He's been great.
The prototype for today's NFL linebacker is speed all over the place, full field coverage, the ability to get to a spot before any blocker can deal with you. And he certainly showed that.
Oh, absolutely. He's been fantastic. And I think going forward, the idea that they're 2 linebackers in sort of nickel dime situations will be him and Jabril Cox. I think that's a recipe for like the modern NFL defense, right? 2 guys, speed, coverage, one that can get after the passer. And Parsons, he had the fumble recovery in the Hall of Fame game, showed that he can flush quarterbacks from the pocket, from the edge or the interior, makes people miss, evades blocks extremely well, can play against the run, showed some coverage skills. We talked about this in the lead up to the draft, right? The value of an off-ball linebacker. Well, when you can find ways to be more than just a off-ball linebacker, when you can flash coverage skills, where you can get after the quarterback, you're going to be extremely valuable to your team. And so for an organization trying to rebuild their defense, he's delivered so far.
Dallas's defense last year was a dumpster fire. We all know this. They were not great in cover 1 and cover 3. So it's one reason I'm saying, we like Dan Quinn better than Mike Nolan, but let's, tap the brakes on this is an overnight fix. But the Cowboys didn't play a lot of dime last year. They were very good against the pass when they did. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Our second guy who wound up on both of our lists, Elijah Molden, slot, we'll call him since he played there most of the time, Tennessee Titans. And I'll just break in here. In one of my mocks this year, I had the Patriots trading down with the Ravens and taking Molden wherever, I think it was 28. Because when I watched him, I thought, this is a Patriots player. And it's a Patriots first round pick because he's a defensive back. And it's so Belichick to take like a 3rd round guy in the 1st round. Everyone goes, huh? And then he becomes a Pro Bowler. And I was talking to Kevin Byard about a month ago, and I asked him about Molden. He said, the kid came in and he's like, he's just heady. He's like, he got the defense right away. And it was the recognition skills and the right place, right time that allows him to peel off and make plays where he shouldn't be, which is an incredibly valuable asset for any defensive back, no matter what position you play.
Yeah. And, I thought it was very interesting. Washington used him at safety at times last year. And I think that put him in a position to learn so much more about defense, about coverages, about shells, about responsibilities, about reading the play from a different vantage point. I think that opportunity for him put him in this position to be extremely successful. Look, his little like slide tackle sack was a fantastic play. But he was somebody that I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he's had this level of success because I made him one of my top 11 corners into the draft. I was just so enamored with this kid, the way he sees and plays the game, the physicality he brings to it. I think he's going to be a standout slot corner in this league for years to come.
The Browns did a lot to overhaul their secondary in the offseason, which they really needed to. And you have a guy on your list who could be a little X factor there.
Yeah, I mean, Richard LeCounte III, like the Georgia kid, might have been picked a lot early in the draft. He had the motorbike accident on Halloween where, he worked his way to come back for their bowl game, but then had a horrible pro day. I mean, I remember the day of the Georgia pro day, every sort of DM group chat, all that stuff was like, he ran a what? Because he ran like 4.79 in the 40. And it's like, you can't be 4.8, as a free safety in the NFL. Like you just can't do that. And so it looked like he was just not going to pan out. He's been fantastic. He's been explosive. He's been sideline to sideline. He had 2 interceptions in the preseason, both of which came on Hail Mary plays, but you still saw some of his ability. But, I put in a clip from their game against Atlanta of him driving downhill, reading the quarterback, breaking up a dig route. John Johnson III is their free safety. Don't get me wrong, but somebody with this skill set might find a role in some other sub packages, and there might come a time when they use both of those two on the field at the same time.
Well, they want Johnson and Grant Delpit on the field, and Johnson's the shot caller because he was for Staley in LA. So he's going to be the shot caller. So he'll be on the field as much as possible. Delpit, there's no guarantee he'll be ready for the start of the regular season. And I'm not saying LeCounte's going to go in there and start. They might have other guys and do whatever. But the Delpit thing is unfortunately not automatic. So
no, it's not, which is a shame because, I was a fan of his coming out, and the thought of him as one more piece in that defense, which I've been talking about so much, was very exciting.
One more guy who can play about 4 different roles.
Yes.
They have many of them. Now that can also turn into a train wreck. Hello, Cardinals. But we'll see how it goes. So that's your all preseason team. Love it. My all preseason team starts with, going to do this again, Justin Fields, quarterback, Chicago Bears.
Oh boy.
All right. So first 2 preseason games, they wouldn't allow him to play with the starters. Okay, whatever. It's like the student court in Animal House. It's the most rigged thing since then. So then they give him the starting 5, and his right tackle is Jermaine Ifedi, which is effectively you have no right tackle. Here's my notes. Fields, who played behind a backup line into the preseason finale against the Titans, was pressured on 29 of his 62 dropbacks, completed 13 of 18 passes for 133 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 111.6. That included, by the way, the ridiculous touchdown pass to Jesper Horsted, which came under pressure. Andy Dalton under pressure this preseason. 3 of 7 passes for 3 completions, 7 attempts for 21 yards, 3 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 50.3. Dalton has taken 2 sacks on 23 dropbacks compared to Fields' 3 on 62 dropbacks. If you can still figure out why Dalton is starting ahead of Fields and Bears take on the Rams on September 12th, please let us know. Please send into the podcast and give us some insight and wisdom here, because I got nothing.
Yeah.
There is no way in which Andy Dalton is a better quarterback than Justin Fields. There is no way. There is no one thing that Andy Dalton does better than Justin Fields. From the pocket, outside the pocket, on the move, reading defenses, making throws. Oh my God, the arm difference is just like, come on.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is that setting protections pre-snap. Like that's the only thing I can think of that they trust Andy Dalton with more.
Setting right what?
Protections.
Setting what?
Yeah.
Setting who? They don't have it.
Yeah. No, I know.
That's
the only thing I can think of.
This is the Chicago Bears, Mark. There are no protections.
There are no protections.
There are no protections. That's just the way it is. So Tyler Huntley, Ravens took him undrafted last year. Got a little bit of time. first two games, he was kind of captain check down. And then where the hell did this come from against Washington? Just deep balls all over the place. And the players were saying, if you put a number 8 on his jersey, we couldn't tell the difference. That was quite something. 24 of 33 for 285 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 17 yards and another touchdown, 3 rushing attempts. And it wasn't like you're going against, because I hate this. Oh, it's the preseason. Okay, block.
Right.
Stop it. You're the people that other people walk away from at parties. It wasn't like he was doing against third stringers and the guy was in the wrong place. He was making tight window throws 30 yards downfield.
Yeah.
On target with, movement. And it's like, okay, I guess Cam's not going to Baltimore. I guess you got your guy. And Greg Roman has said, when we put Huntley in the offense, there's not a big adjustment. And that's crucial because Baltimore's offense is obviously very unique. So I think Huntley is, they've had all kinds of people behind Lamar, and obviously you don't want Lamar to get hurt. You want Lamar to start and, do great things. But based on what I saw against Washington with Huntley, hey, they got something there.
Yeah. And, he was kind of intriguing at Utah. I remember doing a video on him, showed some stuff that he had in the toolkit that would work at the next level. I think he's kind of the perfect backup for Lamar. Given some of the things he can do. Like you said, he made some tight window throws against Washington that were incredible and eye-popping. I think they don't need a backup. They've got it. They've got it in him.
Yeah. Jermichael Hasty, running back, San Francisco 49ers. You remember watching him out of Baylor?
I don't think so. I didn't do a lot on him coming out.
Well, that's kind of my point, because is he the next Raheem Mostert? Like,
right.
Watch this guy, and here he is. 2 touchdowns against the Raiders, who were completely gobsmacked by San Francisco's 2 quarterback counter bash experiment. By the way, little history lesson, kids. Kyle Shanahan is not the first 49ers head coach to alternate quarterbacks in a game. That was Red Hickey, who brought the shotgun to the NFL in 1961 when he alternated Billy Kilmer, John Brody, and Bob Waters. Just saying. So second year undrafted free agent from Baylor, 176 yards and 35 attempts this preseason, forcing a ton of missed tackles through contact. His 2 touchdowns against the Raiders. I mean, yes, the Raiders were waiting for stuff, but it wasn't like he had wide open lanes and blown assignments. He was blowing shit up. So that's a guy, he's kind of like Huntley, had a little, couple reps season 1. Kyle Shanahan's offense is a cheat code for any running back, because it's not just inside, outside zone. It's everything. It's power, trap, it's gap, it's wham, it's whatever. There are guys on this list where you think he's going to be a good backup. Hasty could sneak in for 6 games and do some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And, they're going to be a run first team in a sense, not that they're going to run it all the time, but so much of what they do in the pass game builds off the run that there's an opportunity for San Francisco backs to put up big numbers this year. And it could be him, like you said.
Well, either way, if it's Garoppolo, it's going to be run heavy just to mitigate, you don't want Jimmy throwing too much.
Right.
If it's Lance, when it's Lance, we saw what
you're still going to run the ball. Yeah.
Oh boy. I got Kaepernick flashbacks from the Super Bowl year. I'm just saying. So Terrace Marshall, Panthers. I thought we were smarter about LSU receivers by now than to let this guy slip to the second round.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of things that I just wasn't really enamored with him. But maybe I should have learned my lesson from Justin. But it shouldn't be a surprise that he's doing well.
You led the charge on Justin. You were,
but it shouldn't be a surprise that he's doing well in Carolina under Joe Brady, because if there's a guy that's going to walk into Joe Brady's, offensive system and know that from day one, it's him.
And one of my favorite Lance Zierlein terms, slot bully. That's what he was. 60-yarder from PJ Walker against the Colts. But my favorite play was, and I know you saw it, the tunnel screen against the Steelers last week.
Yeah.
He seemed to evade Pittsburgh's entire defense. And in that offense, you got Robbie Anderson. So you got your sort of targets defined. To have a slot guy for Sam Darnold, who's going to need it behind that offensive line. He's going to need, a yak monster who can create on a simple hot read a lot. And Sam was not great under pressure. I believe he was the lowest rated quarterback under pressure by quarterback rating last year. And have you seen that offensive line outside of Taylor Moton? Not good.
Yeah, it's not great.
So Marshall's another guy who, yes, preseason, blah, 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 but he could also get a lot of reps.
Yeah.
Michael Strahan, not Michael Strahan, who's getting his number retired by the Giants, but
Good for Michael.
7th round rookie out of Charleston. Caught 10 passes on 16 targets for 130 yards, despite Indianapolis's WTF LOL quarterback situation, which looks to extend itself well into the regular season because, Frank Reich is saying it's no big deal with vaccinations. Chris Ballard is saying, yes, it's a huge deal. And Carson Wentz is in the middle going, I don't even know if I can play anymore. So they're going to need receivers.
Yeah, they're going to need receivers. It was nice to see what he was able to do. I mean, the bigger question in Indianapolis is the quarterback situation now because Ellinger's out. Is Wentz going to be cleared to go week 1? Is it Jacob Easton week 1? And we've talked already at length about how they start their season, 4 playoff teams in Miami.
Yeah. I mean, Easton, how did you describe him as kind of a statue with a howitzer?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if Nelson's healthy, best guard in the game, maybe the best offensive lineman. I don't know. Ryan Kelly's healthy. You obviously need your center. I believe Fisher's the penciled in left tackle. I don't know. This is starting to look like the 49ers last year or the Chargers for several years before that. Like 1 year, every team just gets completely screwed with football gods, and it's starting to look like the Colts, and they're not helping matters with their own free will.
Yeah. Exactly.
Our fearless managing editor, Neil Coulong, who is a Pittsburgh guy and all things Steelers, had told me about Pat Farrar with this watch this guy. And he was the first guy, I think, who, and I know you've mentioned it, the under the radar nickname is Baby Gronk. And we're talking about Baby, the best tight end ever. So
right,
you don't want to go there until you watch him. The second touchdown against the Lions in week 2, I'm like, okay. Pinball out of coverage, 2 guys, and it is Lions coverage, so I know it doesn't count. Don't play man if you can't play man, kids.
No.
But the second touchdown where he pinballed off 2 guys and then tight coverage in the end zone on a little slant, and he jumped up about 3 yards and caught the ball and just completely demolished the poor guy who was covering him. I'm like, okay, Baby Gronk it is. Make up the t-shirts and they had no presence at tight end last year. He can also block. As we've mentioned in the preseason podcast, the one thing you never want to do with Eric Ebron is hit him between the 8 and the 5.
Right.
I don't know where the exact point is where you're supposed to hit Eric Ebron, but Freiermuth could make that a moot point or a Muth point. Who knows?
A Muth point. I like that.
A Muth point.
I mean, he was somebody that I did like somewhat. It was just
you wrote him up a lot. We discussed him more than once. So give me your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I was really surprised he fell to where he did because I thought Jacksonville was going to draft him to open up night 2 of the draft. They needed a tight end. I thought that was going to be the landing.
Well, it was Tebow's plan. Come on, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. I was surprised he fell to Pittsburgh, but that's a great situation for him. And like you said, look, Penn State used him in line. Like one of the toughest transitions for rookie tight ends is, okay, on some plays, you're going to be a pseudo offensive tackle. Can you handle that? Where do I stand? Where do I align? Because I've been in the slot or flexed out to the outside my entire college career. That wasn't the case with him. It also wasn't the case with Pitts. They used him in line too, probably to boost his draft stock, but also because he's a unicorn. But they did that with Freiermuth. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we kind of could see a path for him to be very critical to Pittsburgh or wherever he ended up as a rookie. And we're seeing that play out.
Is he baby Heath? I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe. I mean, that could be it.
Stone Forsyth, offensive tackle, Seattle Seahawks, right side with Seattle. We talked about him pre and post draft. Florida alum who lasted until the 6th round because his pass blocking was above average, but his power was, shall we say, lacking. If you're 6'8", it's never good to stand straight up.
Nope.
You tend to lose leverage. He did erase Azeez Ojulari when Florida played Georgia, but I had real questions about his leverage, his bend, and his hand use. His hands are just like, he doesn't know what to do. And, I got to watch tape once with Walter Jones. Walter Jones is sitting in my living room saying, the first thing you have to do is attack with your hands. And if Walter Jones says that, that's what you do.
Right.
Walter Jones is a huge man and is very smart. So do what he says. Forsyth allowed 2 pressures on 67 pass blocking reps. More importantly, he looked really good, especially against the Chargers when asked to pinch inside and seal the edge in the run game for Alex Collins, who also made a case for himself in his return to Seattle. Behind Chris Carson, they kept Rashad Penny, that's just, we made the worst first round pick of our careers, and we're just trying to bail water. And I'm not saying Forsyth is there yet. They have a lot of work to do with his hands, because he doesn't really know how to clench and attack and keep guys away. He doesn't know how to coordinate his bend with his hand use. But if he gets that, they might have something there. At the 6th round, if he can develop into a starting right tackle or left tackle, with those tools, I mean, that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Brendan Thorne saying that if he went back to school, he was going to be a first-round pick next year. Yeah. And he came out, and Seattle, if they're able to turn him into what a first-round pick looks like a starting right tackle or left tackle in the NFL, that's a tremendous job by John Schneider. And you mentioned the Aziz game. He could probably get drafted off that game alone. You shut down somebody like that. And, it's not like Aziz had a well-developed and refined, move to the inside game. He needed to round out his pass rushing plan, but you
Aziz's game
like that.
Aziz's game is me go fast.
Yeah. Me go fast outside your shoulder, left outside shoulder. Yeah. But Stone Forsyth handled them in that game and handled them rather effectively.
If he can,
it was foundation.
I was watching the film session with Orlando Brown that, Brian Baldinger did at NFL Films, and Orlando Brown was talking about how important it is, and I think Orlando's 6'8" too, how to almost overemphasize your bend and get your hands out to the point where guys just can't get inside because your arms are so long and you're so freaking big. And I think if Forsyth did that, it would really help him in his development. And hey, Brandon Thorne, we know about Brandon, worked with him at NFL 1000. I think he's going back to Bleacher this year. Good man. And he knows O-line better than just about anybody. So there you go.
Yep.
Speaking of O-line, Rashaan Slater, he only played 20 snaps, but this guy's bringing the nasty already. And there are a few things I'm looking more forward to in week 1 than the Slater Chase Young rematch.
I mean, that's going to be a war.
Chargers,
it's going to be an absolute battle.
Didn't give up a single pressure in 20 pass blocking snaps. And part of the reason why is they kept him at left tackle as opposed to Penny Sewell, which that is a it's a problem. And the whole right and left tackle is interchangeable. Stop.
Yeah, we need to stop that.
I don't remember who it was. It might have been Joe Thomas, might have been Eric Steinbach. Somebody said moving from the right side to the left side is like wiping your butt with the other hand. And I've never experimented with that. So we'll just leave that alone. But it's been a real problem for Sewell. And
yeah, I saw a recent discussion from, I don't know if it was Jeff Schwartz or Duke Manyweather or somebody who would say it's easier to move from left tackle to left guard than it is left tackle to right tackle, because at least the footwork, the angles, you're still same side. As much as we push back on this is a great tackle, let's move him to guard in the NFL. If you're going to move somebody, keep them same side, because the whole footwork, you just learn it to dance backwards, or whatever analogy you want to use.
Zach Martin, who, if Quentin Nelson isn't the best guard in the NFL, Zach worked pretty well for him.
Yep.
Fellow Notre Dame guy. So my Green Bay Packers offensive lineman, I forget which Packers offensive lineman it was, described himself, or one of his coaches described him as a garbage can full of dirt, which I just thought was yes, that's so good. But Royce Newman, offensive guard, looked great in the run game this preseason, especially working combo stuff. Didn't allow a single pressure in 42 pass blocking reps. This guy, I think he was a 4th rounder. He just screams LaFleur, Shanahan, McVay type of blocker who can, combo and hit the second level, can run inside and outside zone. I think he's going to be a starter soon. Royce Newman, pencil that guy in. Super awesome mullet too, which just helps.
Absolutely.
He gives Aaron Rodgers some mullet power. I think Aaron's working on his own mullet, so double mullet power. Can you imagine if
whatever works?
If the Packers signed Gardner Minshew and you had triple mullet power?
Triple mullet. There we go.
Yeah. Alton Robinson, edge, Seattle Seahawks, 5th round pick out of Syracuse in 2020. He really showed some stuff late in his rookie season, had a sack and 8 pressures this preseason. I'm going to make an elevated comparison. He reminds me of Cliff Averill. Speed around the edge, speed to power straight ahead. I've watched tape with Cliff. I know Cliff decently. I've watched a lot of Cliff's tape. Alton Robinson, out of nowhere, you put him on the other side of Carlos Dunlap, and maybe Seattle solves its pass rush problem, which would be good because I don't think they know who their cornerbacks are. I think it's Trey. It's Trey on one side, Sidney Jones maybe on the other. That was an interesting trade. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, Alton Robinson, name to remember. The aforementioned Malik McDowell. I mean, just go back and watch in Mark's article. There's a 3-play. I think it was from the OBR report.
Yeah, the OBR. Yeah.
Who worked with Barry McBride back at the scout.com days, like 100 years ago. Hi, Barry. Just what he does to Atlanta's interior offensive line. I mean, he
just collapses it like
that
3 straight plays.
Just parental advisory.
Yeah.
D. Delaney, cornerback, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, undrafted free agent out of the Citadel and then Miami in 2018. He spent time with the Jaguars, Dolphins, and Washington. Bucs signed him in May. He's had just 3 regular season snaps in his NFL career to date. But, you have Carlton Davis. You have the cornerback situation is not necessarily defined. Delaney this year allowed 4 catches on 10 targets for 19 yards, 29 yards after the catch, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Both came against the Texans, and an opponent passer rating of 8.3. Is that good?
That's pretty good.
I think
that's pretty good, Doug.
I liked his speed to the ball, his ability to jump routes. He seems like a good diagnoser. The All-22 shows some good stuff. I think D. Delaney could be a guy because you never know what happens in season. I think Todd Bowles is going to be looking at everyone trying to figure out, okay, who are our cornerbacks behind Davis. They've got some options, but I think he's a guy who it's not a completely defined trio. Murphy Bunting is there. He could crash the party. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like sort of like cornerback depth, cornerback rotations, the cornerback situation in Tampa Bay, like it's a question, but it's like the one little weakness they might have on a very good defense.
We both talked about Elijah Molden. I'm going to look something up on Delaney here while I'm blathering on about Elijah Molden. The Titans were horrible in the slot last year. That ends now.
Yeah, that does end now. Absolutely.
And Molden can also play man, which is good because outside of the Lions, the Titans were the worst don't play man if you can't play man team last year. So it's good if, you have really like epic schematic failures. At least for the love of God, draft guys who can play in your epic schematic failures. What I'm looking up is how often the Bucs played dime last year. I'm thinking it was a crap ton.
I think so too. I remember talking about it a lot last year.
All right. Why is this not working? Because I went with 6 defensive linemen. Yeah, that's not going to be a lot because it's not 1934. Duh. Bears led the NFL in dime snaps with 226 per Sports Info Solutions. Let's include the postseason. Yes, I know this is compelling podcast.
It is.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I know. Including the postseason, only the Bears had more dime snaps than the Buccaneers. Buccaneers had 245 dime snaps. And only the Washington football team had more interceptions than dime than did the Buccaneers and the Eagles. Go figure. And then the Broncos with 5. Speaking of the Broncos, Jamar Johnson, safety, Denver Broncos. I do know how Johnson lasted until the 5th round out of Indiana. He had first-round coverage abilities in college. You may remember he intercepted Justin Fields twice in one game, including a really nice low post thing that just came out of nowhere. But his tackling was really super bad. So 5th round. Tape against the Rams, he had one run fit play where he just came in and he wanted that. He really asserted a physical presence I did not see from him in college. And then he had a play outside where it was too high because it's Fangio. Too high, came down and just broke the play up. It was kind of a John Johnson thing where it's Johnson likes to knock people out more than he likes to get interceptions. My point is this cornerback, this secondary, if Jamar Johnson and Fangio said this week, yeah, he's getting better, but he still needs to tackle, at an NFL level, which is true. But this is your secondary. If you got Kyle Fuller, Bryce Callahan, Patrick Surtain, Justin Simmons, and Jamar Johnson, who, I mean, wow.
Yeah. And what's the old adage of baseball? You can never have enough pitching. In today's NFL, you can never have enough coverage players in the secondary. Like, it's a passing league. To put those two safeties together, to have those corners, there's a reason people are saying this could be a top 3 defense.
Because it can be.
That's
so before we boot out of here, Cam and Mac.
Yep.
Here are my thoughts. I had said when they signed Cam Newton, the Patriots signed Cam Newton, this is going to be so great because Bill Belichick goes back to his time as a defensive coordinator of the Giants when he had to defend Randall Cunningham twice a year. He's never had a quarterback like this. And he must have 5 folders of mobile quarterback stuff and, advanced QB run game. And it turns out, I don't think he did.
No.
I don't think it was ever going to work, because what are the hallmarks of the Patriots passing game with Tom Brady? Go.
Quick decisions, ball placement, yardage after the catch, winning early in the down with precision. I mean, that's kind of what it was. And
Cam is a lot of things.
Guy.
That ain't
He's
Cam.
not that guy. Cam's a violent thrower with torque in the vertical downfield passing game. And
if you use him in the run game, he's devastating. They never
really did. And part of that was they didn't really have a running back, like ideal situations for that quarterback run game, short yardage, red zone, things like that. They didn't have an ideal running back to pair with that until they drafted Rhamondre Stevenson, I'd say. But prior to that, they didn't have that. And so it just didn't quite work. It just did not quite work. And Belichick, in this decision to release Cam, I think the decision to outrightly release him was 2 things. One, Belichick has shown in the past a willingness to just release veterans rather than like trade them somewhere, because he's like, look, you've earned the right to like pick your new spot. Like, I'm not just going to like trade you to somewhere where I'm not going to like trade you to San Francisco where you're going to be like buried. Like, find a spot where you're going to be comfortable. Number 1. Number 2, it's the burn the boats moment, right? If you keep Cam, the first time Mac Jones struggles, my friends Phil Perry and Mike Debate and Evan Lazar are going to walk into that locker room and start asking people, should they go to Cam? If Cam's not on the team, there's no going back. We are turning the page. We are burning the boats. There's no looking back. This is now Mac Jones. This is Mac Jones's team.
I had said before week 3 of the preseason on the pod that the one thing I hadn't seen from Mac is it's 3rd and whatever. You're getting pressured and you have to make that hero throw. Right. I saw a little bit of that, and it's not evading the pocket, it's pocket movement. And I'm like, okay, you know what? If you can get it done that way, it's not. I would not invest my professional future in a quarterback who cannot do second reaction stuff, but that's me. And, the guy who is going to do that knows a little bit about football. So, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
that goes.
He had a throw on a dig route coming from right to left where he had to sort of slide in the pocket and, where he's set up to look downfield. It looks like he's backpedal. And my mind instantly went to Super Bowl 36, 64 max all in, Tom Brady to Troy Brown to get into field goal range for Vinatieri. It was the same mannerisms, and I was back in law school watching that play. I'm not saying that he's going to be Tom Brady, but he has to follow that Tom Brady footwork path to keeping himself alive in the pocket. And he's shown enough of that where I think it could work. Will it? That's why they play the games, but I think it could.
You have to remember that Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady for a while. I'm looking this up.
No, I mean, what did they do with Tom Brady at the start? They won with defense. They won with the run game.
Actually, in his second year as a starter, he led the NFL 28 touchdown passes. So maybe he was Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't
back
awful.
On the phone. He's telling me to go, boot himself because.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like
he was Tom Brady right away.
Brad Johnson, Trent Dilfer being carried to Super Bowls. Like, he was still pretty good to start, but
he was. And I would never put Tom Brady and game manager in the same paragraph.
No,
he was a distributor around a run game.
Yeah.
And the run game.
All quarterbacks are system quarterbacks. Some quarterbacks are just more system quarterbacks than others. That is the way to look at it.
Brady, let's see, led the NFL in yardage in 2005. It wasn't really until 07 when they got
07 when it like took off.
Full metal spread. First team in NFL history that we know of to go more than 50% shotgun. So the point is Tom Brady wasn't Tom, like super Tom, and it took a few years. But I think I've finally come to terms with the fact that this is the kind of quarterback the Patriots want. I think they hoped it would work with Cam, but also, and we've discussed this, Belichick knew that 2020 was going to be a waste year. That's why all those opt-outs, we're going to, dump all this cap. We're going to come back and go crazy. And by the way, this new receiver group, which we really didn't see that much in the preseason, if I don't know what Hunter Henry's health status is, but we can say that every week. He's got, I'm sure Brady's looking at like, okay, now you get these guys. Jeez.
Right. Jacoby Myers is good. Jacoby Myers is a good NFL receiver. Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, they're going to have the 12 personnel capabilities. I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of exotic 22 where you've got Myers, the 2 tight ends, White and Stevenson on the field. Like that's the package I'm most excited to potentially see.
Who plays cornerback opposite JC Jackson? That's the question.
That's probably the bigger question. I mean, when you're traded for Sean Wade prior to the season starting, like corner depth is a problem for this team. Like all the additions that they made, all that stuff. The fact that Gilmore, the biggest storyline in New England isn't Mac Jones. It's Stephon Gilmore on pup to start the season. Corner depth is going to be an issue.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes. And next week, in preparation for the games, we will do fall-on matchups. Talk about this a lot more, but we want to get our all preseason team because it is the thing that NFL players we look forward to the most. Like, did I make it? So now,
did you make
guys, you don't have to wait any longer. When we put this up, you'll know if you've made it. So congratulations.
Yep. Congratulations to all epic efforts this preseason.
Yes, indeed. All right, man. Epic efforts from you as well on Touchdown Wire. Keep it posted there. We got all kinds of stuff coming up, including, I'm watching tape with a rather prominent NFL quarterback today.
Oh boy.
We'll see how
that should be fun.
Yeah. All right. All right, man. Good stuff as always. And we'll talk next week.
Sounds good, Doug.